Hello everybody, my name is Eki Imanjaya. I'm from Film Department, Binus University, Jakarta, Indonesia. Today I'm going to present a paper titled Lisa, an anomalous pre-state Ibuism film. While in mainstream perspectives, it is believed that in New Order era, the women were marginalized both in and off-screen. Lisa, on the other hand, seems to be anomalous. Many scholars argue that most representation of women on screen were weak, silent, housewifeification, and domestication. In the perspective of state Ibuism theory, which was formulated based on PKK program or Pembinaan Kesejahteraan Keluarga, Family Welfare Movement, as well as Azas Kekeluargaan, Family Principle, and Dharma Wanita, official organization for the wives of civil servants, which were officially issued in 1978, most of New Order films seem to fit the frame. However, Lisa, produced 7 years before the program, can be read as the window opportunity for producing the progressive film culture. Or probably it is just one of the anomalous cases of the New Order cinema history. I will answer how different the film with state Ibuism theory by undertaking textual analysis, by having a close reading to the film, and I will answer why it is different by undertaking new cinema history approach and highlighting the paradoxes of New Order's fallacies. First, let me elaborate the theory. The term state Ibuism was coined by Julia Suryakusuma when she wrote her MA thesis in 1988 titled State Ibuism, the Social Construction of Womanhood in New Order Indonesia. In Inside Indonesia, she wrote, I quote, the dominant gender ideology defined women as wives and mothers as epitomized in Dharma Wanita, the state-sanctioned organization for civil servants' wives. In the formal hierarchy of this nationwide institution, the position held by women parallel those held by their husbands. The research by Surya Kusuma regarding state Ibuism was originally undertaken in a rubber plantation in Cintado, West Java, by focusing on PKK program in Bumi Wangi village, Sukabumi. To get the big picture, let me elaborate about the films. The ideology of Azas Kekeluargaan and PKK was released by the Directorate General for Rural Development in 1978. PKK consists of the 5 responsibilities of women, or Pancadara Wanita, frames Indonesian woman as having the following 5 functions. Wife, standing by the husband, household manager, mother, responsible for reproduction, educator of the children, and citizen of Indonesia. The father positions are fundamental figures as the rulers and the leaders of the house. The mothers and wives are considered ikut suami, or following or supporting the husbands, and Ratu, rumah tangga, queen of the household. For Marimis, this situation is process of housewifization. Julius Surya Kusuma formulated state Ibuism theory by adopting theories from Marimis housewifization, Madeline Jayadiningrat's Ibuism, and a keyword approach for the state developed by Michael van Landenberg. State Ibuism describes as the domestication of Indonesian women. The image of the perfect woman is that someone accepting their natural function as wife and mother, completely and exclusively responsible for the social growth of her children. And there is almost no acknowledgement of women as individuals. In New Order context, one can find popular and scholarly arguments regarding gender have a similar spirit with Surya Kusuma's state Ibuism. Some of the arguments highlight that women were depicted as negative, powerless, silent, and passive. Krishna Sen argues that some genres of Indonesian films are exactly about, I quote, seeing the woman, but not about the woman seeing or speaking, end of quote. Women were characterized in minor and significant parts of the films, and I quote, some genres such as historical, martial arts, crime, and comedy are on the whole about men and what the films define as man's desires and man's sphere of action, end of quote. On screen, women were most generally seen in domestic situations, dependent on and defined by the male protagonist. Cita Aripurnami quote feminist Mira Diarsi, who claims that in Indonesian films at that time, I quote, the acceptable woman is one who marries and lives beneath a man's shelter, whereas the woman who attempts to stand on her own is cursed and presented as an example of failure in life. Aripurnami argues, in Indonesian films, married women with children and a successful career are never shown as role figures to emulate. A woman with a career who aspires to achieve her private determinations is a self-centered woman whose behavior will disturb the comfort and harmony of her family. Her husband will be fascinated to other women, her children will go awry and turn out to be criminals. Elsewhere, Aripurnami mentions that a working woman is recognized as long as she can accomplish to combine her job with the household and the care of the children. Other typecasting imageries of female characters are as sex symbols and evil and seductive women. Krishna Sen underlines that mostly female characters act as the witches and the ghosts in horror films. Other representation is female being a prostitute, and so on. What about Lisa? The film belongs to psychological horror genre and considered as the first horror film in Indonesia. The film was produced in 1971 by Tuti S, directed by M. Sharifuddin A, and the second film produced by Tuti Jaya Films. The film focuses on Lisa, who just lost his crazy rich father and live under her stepfather's control. This is Lisa and her late father. Lisa comes from a liberal family, as we can see a picture of topless woman hanging on the wall and the lifestyle they have on screen. The stepmother, Madam Tin Kartawiguna, and we can only hear her name once or twice in the movie, later was informed that she did not get any inheritance from her late husband and Lisa will get everything. So she decided to take over all the companies owned by her late husband and even planned to kill the innocent Lisa to own the whole heritage for her own. Moreover, she also sexually exploits Lisa's secret boyfriend, a handsome guy in the middle named Harun, who is also the family driver. In the film, the female characters are the focus, the breadwinners, and in charge of everything. Tin has a very big house, and as the opposite of domestication, she appoints herself as a big boss, both at home and in all the companies. With this kind of power and fortune, she also has power to hire a male killer, to fire a lawyer who disagreed with her, and she is indeed far from becoming passive, powerless, nor silent characters. Being an antagonist, she has the female gaze and sexually exploit Harun, from just staring his bare naked body lustily to keeping him as her submissive, her sex partner. She even discusses Harun's body and appearance with Lisa by saying, "Are you into him?" He has a good body, not so bad face, and well educated. padanya lumayan, tidak jelek, terpelajar. I argue that these scenes are the reverse action of to be looked at theory. And I argue that the first attempt of the seduction can be categorized as molesting act, as it was not consensual and Harun was under his employer's power. We can see Harun's expression of unwillingness in the first bed scene, and weakly refuses by saying, "This is inappropriate, madam." In another scene, Harun testifies that he cannot reject the boss' intention. "I can't do anything, I'm powerless." As the wife, the stepmother breaks her pledge to her late husband to stay loyal to him until she dies, and to keep mourning by staying at home. The thing that she repeatedly, again and again, during the first half of the film, and she also forces Lisa to do so. I argue this action is the housewifeization. Lisa is also a progressive girl. She secretly dates the family driver. She goes to the beach with a bikini with her lover, asking him openly about the sustainability of their relationship. She go picnic with her car, and of course, Harun is the driver, and Lisa decides when to kiss and when to only hang out. And of course, they have sex until she gets pregnant. In short, Harun actually became sex object for both stepmother and stepdaughter. Both female characters are strong, and we can see the opposite concept of, I quote, seeing the woman, but not about the woman seeing or speaking. In order to get the context of the zeitgeist of New Order in its early years, the era when Lisa was produced, let me elaborate the short story of New Order cinema. This story was full of a series of contradictions, as I discussed in my doctoral thesis. In short, there are two ends of policies from early New Order era. The first end tries to monitor film through film development decrease, film pemilihan film, and so on. And one of the milestones was the establishment of Dewan Produksi Film Nasional, National Film Production Board, which funded 4 national films. The other end is the requirement to raise the production of local film, initially with the Ministerial Decree number 71, year 1967, namely benefits from import for interest of increasing production and rehabilitation of national film industry, which paved the way for B-grade films and sex-theme films directly by increasing numbers of the film production, and indirectly by increasing the number of Hollywood films that later on would influence the styles and genres of many Indonesian films. In 1968, few months before the founding of Dewan Film Nasional, another institution, Sumanjaya, a young filmmaker and the new head of Directorate of Film, asked the Minister of Information, PMDIA, to guard the national film industry. As a result of this, DIA issued Ministerial Decree number 71, as I mentioned earlier, and was applied until 1976. As a result, within 3 years, local film production developed quantitatively to 20 films and rose to 50 films in 1971, whereas the number of imported films remained at around 70 and 750 films. In 1970, more foreign films, particularly sex-theme movies, entered Indonesia. On 23rd of January 1970, to stem the strong flow of imported sex education movies, Director of Film Directorate Sumanjaya issued the Decree number 45, year 1970, which stated that the national film industry needed to vary the films from several genres and topics, hence they decided to comprise sex-theme imported films. In 1973, the year Lisa was produced, the Minister of Information, Budiarjo, amended the Quantity Approach Decree, namely Minister Decree 71, year 1967, with Decree number 74, year 1973. this new policy was a response of the commercial disappointment of funded films produced by the National Film Council, known as the quantity approach. The goal of this policy was to, I quote, let the quantity of films grow first, therefore the quality will automatically follow. Another term for this regulation was the audience approach. As a result, the number of local films increased drastically from 10 to 21 titles in 1970, from 10 films in 1969 to 134 feature films in 77, from 21 titles in 1970 to 52 in 1971. As a consequence of this new decree, the government began to loosen censorship in order to feed audience taste by importing more foreign films and in result earn tax revenues from them. Apparently, local films also got loosen their censorship. As the result of this is the release of Bumi Makin Panas. The earth is getting hot. These are some of the films. Along with Bernapas Dalam Lumpur, Breathing in the Mud in 1970, this film is important to note because they were among the first to depict more vulgar sexual discourses in public sphere. So it's Bumi Makin Panas, it is getting hot, and Bernapas Dalam Lumpur. And placed prostitutes as the main protagonists with some daring sensual scene according to the child case at that time. It is important to note that during early 70s, there are some daring movies such as Orang-Orang Liar, Hidup Cinta dan Air Mata, and Bernapas Dalam Lumpur. Lisa was produced during these contradictions and paradoxes, particularly the audience and quantity approach. In conclusion, I can argue that from the close reading of the film Lisa, at least Lisa is one of the anomalous films from early New Order. Not only there is a phenomenon of fraternal absence, see Nosa Normanda's paper on the conference, but also depict strong female characters, breadwinner, powerful, female gaze, and weak male characters, sex objects, playboy who get hired to kill, employees such as driver, and also a lawyer who got fired. It is important to note about the reverse to be looked at perspective within the scenes. Why is Lisa different? Although it was produced in New Order era, we can find the answer from historical approach. New Order has produced a series of contradictions, particularly quality approach versus quantity approach, or audience approach, which paved way to this kind of films. Thank you very much.